been brought up lately. And I feel like, I feel like we've been talking about this so much the past couple of weeks, but I want to bring it up because a lot of people have been talking about it. And that is the idea of, hey, Todd Bowles is not out of the woods yet. He's not. And a lot of people, and I even had a theory about this. We'd even talked on the phone about this earlier this week. And a lot of people, it's been a bit of a popular thing that, hey, if the Bucs get blown out in this playoff game, Todd Bowles may still be fired. If the Bucs even lose this playoff game, with all the different moves that we've been seeing around the league, Billy, I don't know if you know this, but 1/4 of the league has been searching for its new head coach. We've already seen a little bit of movement. Gerard Mayo is the new head coach of the New England Patriots. They moved very quickly on that, but you're also seeing a lot of prominent head coaches being moved on from. Mike Vrabel is gone. He's a very interesting prospect. You have Pete Carroll, who is gone. You have Bill Belichick, who is gone, as well as just a lot of other intriguing candidates out there around the league. That has led a lot of people to speculate, and I even, thought in theory about this to you whenever we had discussed this, of will the Buccaneers feel the pressure to make a move if they lose in the playoffs? And I want your initial thoughts and opinions about that because it has been a bit of a topic for the past couple of days for the Bucs and for Todd Bowles.
I think I'm going to have a rather unpopular opinion. I think, and I feel this way, I think Todd Bowles is safe. I don't think it really matters how this game goes, even if they do suffer an unfortunate defeat and it looks ugly and the Eagles run the ball for another 200 yards against Tampa Bay's defense. I think Todd Bowles is secure. I think the main reason behind that is what you talked about before, and I alluded to before, exceeding expectations. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers just being in this spot is a massive testament to Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield and company. They weren't supposed to be here. They got themselves here. The head coach deserves credit for that. Now, you mentioned Mike Vrabel, and I think Mike Vrabel is an absolutely awesome coach. And I'm not saying that I would keep Todd Bowles around or not look at other options if it were me. I'm just saying for me personally, I just don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are looking to go that route. I think they like Todd Bowles. I think until he does something egregious, I think Todd Bowles is safe. And to me, if you make the playoffs, you win your division. It's two straight playoff appearances for Todd Bowles as a head coach, two straight division titles. And even maybe the most impressive thing, you lose your Hall of Fame quarterback. Everybody thought, the wheels were going to fall off, and you actually have a better record the next year with a quarterback who was perceived to be a bridge quarterback that you scooped up out of free agency. I think that really all bolsters Bowles' case to stay, and I just don't think the Buccaneers, I really don't think they have any interest in moving on.
I love Mike Vrabel. I love that man.
And
He's fantastic. And I will say this, I agree with you. I understand where people come from whenever they say, well, if the Bucs don't win a playoff game, that's ultimately what people want to see is your coach win some playoff games. I don't think we're there yet, right? I think next year, if the Bucs go to the playoffs, they don't win a playoff game, then you may say, okay, we may have to make a change here, right?
or if they miss the playoffs entirely next year, I
Yes,
think that all of a sudden really heats up his seat.
I think in either one of those scenarios, you would be looking to move on,
Yeah.
right? And I agree with you also when saying, hey, this isn't necessarily what I would do. But I think that whenever you look at the organization and what their mindset may possibly be, yes, there are a lot of intriguing prospects out there. Yes, the Bucs may feel the pressure of some of those other teams making some moves, very prominent teams at that, but expectations were exceeded. In my opinion, I think the Buccaneers like Todd Bowles. I think they want to see Todd Bowles succeed. And even if he doesn't win a playoff game this year, it still is only his second season as head coach with the team. He has still won the division twice in a row. He has made the playoffs twice in a row. And I think that next year is whenever you start talking about, okay, now expectations can be win a playoff game, or we look for a guy who can win a playoff game. The
Right.
only
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go
Go ahead.
ahead. No, 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 you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say because the expectations this year were changed because they lost their quarterback. If they'd have kept Tom Brady and rolled it over for another year with Tom, and they go to the playoffs again with Tom and don't win a playoff game, then all of a sudden expectations weren't met. Because you had to switch out a Hall of Fame best quarterback you're ever going to coach for a relatively unproven commodity at the position, and you still got to the same, a better record, and at least at the bare minimum, the same status in the season, that's a successful year for a head coach.
No, I agree 100%. And like I think you would consider this season a success so far up to this point for the Bucs, right? With all the changes that they've had the past couple of years, with even the situation last year where Todd Bowles was thrust into the head coaching position very late into the process, still made the playoffs, still won the division, and was able to do that again this year with even more change. Like in the past year and a half, you have had so
Yeah.
you lost Bruce Arians, you lost Tom Brady, you lost just a lot of cohesion and chemistry and culture and things that were there, and you have to rebuild a lot of that. Not a lot of that, but you have to rebuild some of that, right? And that affects expectations. That affects what your opinion of the coach and what you expect from him is going to be. And I think Bowles has exceeded some of those expectations in a lot of different ways and met some of those expectations as well regarding how his defense was going to be, how some of those players are going to grow and develop. In some ways, probably not met in terms of some other guys being grown and develop in terms of recent high draft picks like JTS and Logan Hall and stuff like that. But overall, I don't think it's crazy to say it. The good outweighs the bad, Billy. I mean, and people may be upset about that. People may disagree with that. But whenever you look at the overall picture, and I even see you wincing about it, but whenever you look at the overall picture, the Bucs are in a better position than people thought they were going to be in.
I can't go as far as to say the good outweighs the bad. I'll just say I don't think there's been anywhere near enough bad to just completely pull the trigger. Or for the Buccaneers to say, yes, we've got to pull the trigger. I'm not, yeah, to say the good outweighs the bad, I don't know. That feels really generous. But I just, there hasn't been so much bad. I mean, look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went to the playoffs, won the division 2 consecutive seasons. And yeah, they lost last year in the playoffs, and they also, are underdogs here this year as well. But that's not an unsuccessful season for a coach taking over in his first 2 years, having to deal with a lot of things. You mentioned the quarterback change, or we both mentioned the quarterback change. Also had to deal with a trade request from his star defensive player, in the offseason. I mean, these are not ideal circumstances. His first season, Tom Brady just took a vacation during missed all of training camp, and then also didn't fly with the team to Pittsburgh. And he had to deal with last year. Devin White had issues with his effort. He was called out by a former superstar, Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and Warren Sapp. So I don't know that definitively. You mentioned Byron Leftwich not being able to hire his own staff. This being the first year that Todd Bowles was able to actually go out and do that, get the coordinator that he wanted. I don't know that he's been given the greatest scenario, certainly not the worst scenario, but I don't think he's been given as pristine a scenario as on paper it looks to be. And he has gotten you results. He has gotten you 2 straight division championships, and there is certainly a decent probability the Buccaneers could win a playoff game this year. It's not as if they are going into the game and just completely overmatched that they can't beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, James, just ask Cynthia Freeland.
Yeah, I mean, hey, seventh best percentage there. Um, I will say this. We could be wrong, right? I mean, again, like you have a couple of really interesting prospects out there. Again, Mike Vrabel. If it was up to me, I would fire Todd Bowles and hire Mike Vrabel in a heartbeat. I mean, am such a huge fan of Coach Vrabel. Also, another guy I would heavily consider is Todd Monken, a guy who's familiar with the Bucs. I think that he's a guy who could really deserve a head coaching spot and would be a good head coaching candidate for the Bucs. Um, but ultimately, I think it's also important to look at it contextually, to look at it in the eyes of the Bucs organization, right? And I just think that I'm gonna say that there's an outside chance the Bucs do make a move, right? I'm not gonna totally discredit it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did make a move. I also would be less surprised though if they did keep Todd Bowles at this point.
I would be surprised if they made a move. I
Really?
just I I don't see it. I don't know. Again, I don't think you can.
Well, now to this point, three field goals to beat the Panthers and losing in and if you lose this wild card game, I think his fate is sealed, is what Willie Beeman says in the chat. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Willie, I think the game against the Carolina Panthers, to me, and James, we talked about this. Thanks for bringing that up, Willie. The game against the Panthers, to me, actually bolstered Todd Bowles' stock. The Buccaneers win that game because of Todd Bowles' defense. Baker Mayfield and Dave Canales, in terms of re-signing Baker in the offseason and Dave Canales' potential quest to become a head coach, those stocks took massive hits in that game. 9 points against an underperforming team with nothing to play for is not good. But Todd Bowles' defense pitches a shutout in the most important game of the season, and it's a shutout that they pretty much needed in order to win. So to me, Todd Bowles being the defensive play caller as a head coach, of course, he takes blame for everything. But in that game, his defense was ready. The offense was not. And to me, yeah, I think that game kind of showed Todd Bowles still kind of got it as a defensive coordinator. And although the opponent was a lesser opponent, the defense did what it needed to do. So I don't look at that game as a knock on Bowles. To me, that game kind of goes more against if you don't think the injury is a major factor, it's a knock on Baker going into the offseason.
Yeah, so guys, well, ultimately we'll see. We'll see what happens, right? Me and Billy could be wrong. We could be wrong, or we could be right. I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
I mean, Mike Vrabel would be amazing. I would just leave it at that.
Either way, we'll be talking about this. I mean, geez, as soon as the next podcast episode, Billy, we don't know what's going to happen, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But we'll see if Todd Bowles is safe. If he goes, should he stay or should he go? I don't know, man. We'll see. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation.